Hey everyone, we finally made it. This is the official start to the algebra unit in 6th grade math. We're going to start with just a bunch of vocabulary, some new words that you're going to hear quite frequently, and I need you to understand what they mean. First vocabulary word, an expression. An expression is a mathematical phrase that contains at least one operation. So if you look below, we have some algebraic expressions. P plus 5, 2x minus 1. In P plus 5, we have addition. That is the one operation I need in order to have an expression. 2x minus 1, we have multiplication and subtraction. So more than one operation, definitely have an expression. Notice, no expression has an equal sign. As soon as I would add an equal sign into this, they would become equations. So expressions, they have at least one operation, and they do not contain any equal signs. All right, next, let's talk about a term. Terms are mathematical objects separated by plus or minus signs. And looking at this first example, I have the algebraic expression 4m plus 2 minus w. Now, every time I have a plus sign or a minus sign, that plus or minus sign acts like a wall or a barrier that separates two terms. So here's a plus sign, and that plus sign is separating 4m and 2. So 4m is a term, and 2 is a term. And now I have a minus sign here. That minus sign is separating 2 and w. So we already identified 2 as a term, w is a term as well. So in the expression 4m plus 2 minus w, there are 3 terms. 5v plus 9, here's a plus sign. That plus sign is separating terms. It is separating 5v from 9. So 5v is a term and 9 is a term. This entire expression has 2 terms. All right, variable. Hopefully you heard this word before. A variable is a symbol used to represent an unknown number. Usually they'll be in the form of a letter in your mathematical expression. So let's take a look down below. E to the second power plus 5f minus 6. The variables are going to be those symbols representing unknown values. E is a variable and f is a variable. 2x minus 3y plus 4z next. X, y, and z are all variables. All right, coefficient. A coefficient is a number used to multiply a variable. In fact, every variable has some type of coefficient. In the expression 9g, I know that g is a variable. The number being multiplied times that variable is the coefficient. And in algebra, it's usually a number just touching a variable with nothing in between, because that is an algebraic shortcut for multiplication. 9g means 9 times whatever the value of g is. So because 9 is being multiplied times g, and 9 is touching g with nothing in between, 9 is the coefficient in that expression. Over here, 2h minus 6j. We have a variable h. Every variable has a coefficient. What number is being multiplied times h? 2 is. So 2 is a coefficient. J is a variable. It will have a coefficient. Now this one is a little tricky. 6 is being multiplied times j. But anytime a coefficient is preceded by a minus sign, we're going to say that that coefficient is negative. So because of this minus sign, the coefficient on j is negative 6. All right, let's just practice identifying variables, coefficients, and terms. So here's an algebraic expression, 16k minus 4n plus 2. What are the variables in the expression? Well, the variables are the symbols of the unknown values. So k is a variable, and n is a variable. So k and n are the variables of this expression. Coefficients. Remember, every variable has a coefficient. So we have already identified k as a variable. What is its coefficient? What value is being multiplied times k? What number is touching k? 16. 16 is the coefficient of k. We also said that n was a variable. What number is touching n? We have a 4 out here, but hopefully you caught this minus sign. Anytime there's a minus sign in front of a coefficient, that coefficient is negative. So we have 16 and negative 4 as our coefficients. Finally, our terms. Remember, terms are objects separated by plus or minus signs. So here's a minus sign. That minus sign is separating 16k from 4n. And here's a plus sign. That plus sign is separating 4n from 2. So 16k is a term, 4n is a term, and 2 is a term. So there are 3 total terms in that expression. All right, let's do another one, 9g. What are the variables? Symbol representing an unknown value. The only one here is g. Coefficients, what numbers are touching the variables? What are the variables being multiplied by? In this case, it's a 9. And then finally, how many terms? There are no plus or minus signs, so they are not separating any terms. So this entire expression is just one big term. All right, next example, 4 plus 3 times x to the second power plus 6y. What are the variables? X and y are both variables. Number 2, looking for the coefficients. Remember, every variable has a coefficient. What number is being multiplied times x? We have a 3 out in front of it. 3 is a coefficient of x. Variable y, the coefficient, the number touching it, it is being multiplied by 6. So 3 and 6 are both coefficients. Finally, looking for terms. Here's a plus sign. That plus sign is separating 4 from 3x to the second power. Here's another plus sign separating 3x to the second power from 6y. So we have 1, 2, 3 terms. All right, here's an algebraic expression, 9h plus 13d. I want you to answer these questions on your own. Pause the video and tell me, what are the variables of this expression? Identify the coefficients of the expression, and then tell me how many terms are in this expression. Once you finished, hit play again, and we'll see how you did. All right, let's check your work. Variables, h and d. Coefficients, the numbers being multiplied times the variables. We have 9 and 13. And how many terms? Here's a plus sign separating those two sides. So 9h is a term, 13d is a term. There are 2 total terms in this expression. All right, next we have x plus 13. Again, try this on your own. Pause the video and answer the 3 questions we have been practicing. All right, let's see how you did. Variables in the expression, there's only one. X is a variable. Now here's a tricky question, coefficients. I've said all lesson long, every variable has a coefficient. Here we have a variable, but there's no number out in front of it. Anytime you have a variable with nothing in front of it, there's actually an invisible 1. So the coefficients of this expression, the coefficient of x is a positive 1. How many terms are there? Here's my plus sign. It's separating x from 13. That gives me 2 total terms. All right, last one. 5w to the third power plus 4w minus 3w. Pause the video, identify the variables, coefficients, and terms, and then resume playing again to see how you did. All right, variables. We have a w here, and a w here. W within one expression would have the same value over and over again. So we only need to list the w once, even though it occurs 3 times in the expression. Coefficients, however, though, we need to identify each coefficient on every w. So for the first w, we have a 5. The second w, we have a 4. And then the final w, there's a 3, but in front of it is a minus sign. So that is a negative 3 coefficient. Your coefficients are 5, 4, and negative 3. Finally, how many terms are there? Here's a plus sign. What is it separating? It's separating 5w to the third power from 4w. And then we have a minus sign. That's separating 4w from 3w. 3 terms in the expression. Please be sure to complete the independent practice assignment on the algebraic expressions vocabulary. Take a picture of your work or use Kami to complete the PDF file, and then upload your final file for submission. Take care, everyone.